For most people, there is a fine line between what is right and what is wrong. There is an innate moral compass that has been passed down from generation to generation. Following the example of the individual actor's direct family or caretakers results in the essence of what makes an individual define who and what they are in a given society. This concept makes the definition of what is normal dependent on multiple factors. Nevertheless, the distinction between right and wrong remains in most cases to be the same in a normal environment without threat of harm from any outside force. What Karl Marlantes poses in his book, What It Is Like to Go to War, is that human behavior during and after what would go against the definition of a normal environment is monumental to a global society trying to wrap its head around what is wrong with the military service members and veterans after they have experienced the violent and gruesome scenes of war. The understanding of a thing is different from trying to fix a thing, just as it is different to accept a thing, whatever it might be. For veterans, military, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, and more, the lines of what is normal and not normal are blurred. The distinction between what is safe and not safe is blurred. When the line of what is right and wrong is blurred or removed altogether, the individual then enters a realm of a god, as Marlantes likes to put it. On the battlefield of Vietnam, there were moral and ethical choices that were made that fell far outside what normal society would consider to be the right thing. What many often fail to understand is that in the thick of war there is no right or wrong. There is kill or be killed. Those that have experienced traumatic events are forever changed and oftentimes can never return to their original way of seeing life. There are events so traumatic that it can drive the emotions and thought processes of the recipient for the rest of their natural lives. There are also those that then choose to take control of their life in the only way that they feel they can and take their own life. Is there a way to stop this from happening, or is this just a casualty of war that reflects the truth of human society? Today there are roles that have been abandoned from older times when conflicts large and small tore people apart. Conflict still abounds, but in many areas, nations' fighting forces become smaller and smaller as society as we know it today moves into a more progressive direction. This has had unintentional side effects, especially for those who fight in today's conflicts. Warriors of ancient times in multiple societies would go through long and much-needed times of reintegration back into their home society. Marlantes paraphrases from a translation of The Tane, where a great warrior named Karl presents himself to the royal court of his own home country and demands a great warrior to fight, and if his demands are not met, he will kill them all. The king sends his own queen and many other women to Karl. The king then tells Karl that these were the only warriors he would struggle with that day. In most cases, there are few that can calm a testosterone-filled and bloodthirsty male warrior than a woman can. I do not mean sexually, necessarily, just that the courage of the opposite sex, whether male or female, possesses great calming power over the other. In The Tane, Karl is bathed multiple times by these women, and the heat of war that is upon him boils and bursts the tubs. Over and over, the women place him in tubs full of cold water till finally his body and the water reach the same temperature. It is at this point that symbolizes the warrior Karl has been calmed and reintegrated into his home society. It takes great courage to stand vulnerable in front of a seething warrior with lust for death and violence that they just came from. There are few or no other comparable ways to reintegrate the warrior, both past and present, into the normal society. Today, this can take the form of friends or family of the opposite or same sex, depending on the individual, just being there to experience normal life, again, with a returning warrior. Too often, reintegration from a combat zone today looks more like 1,000 PowerPoint slides and a whole lot of alcohol, and in some cases a lot of drugs, both prescribed and otherwise. How did humanity go from truly taking care of a returning warrior from battle to fearing them and in some cases hating them and blaming them for the state of society? When did it become the warrior's fault for what they were either ordered to do or did so out of survival? Does the fall of the warrior foretell the fall of society, or the advancement of it paid for with the bodies and minds of those who fought for it? Either way, most would say that such things are not moral and do not fall into the normal and civilized way of life in any society. There is no erasing the past or forgetting what has happened in life. Every day has meaning, even the days that are the worst and most inhuman. Coming to understand these facts are not easily stumbled upon. Just as it takes courage to stand in front of a bloodthirsty warrior, it also takes courage for that same warrior to look within themselves and face the past, present, and look toward the future. There is no easy or fast way to face what someone did or didn't do. Patience and time are needed to unravel the inside of the mind after a single or multiple traumatic events. What it is like to go to war started out as an individual's way to make sense of what had happened to them, and transformed into research, investigation, and even a little obsession into what traumatic events do to the mind and body. It does not focus on how these things can become undone, but how they can become a meaningful and productive part of life. Fewer and fewer understand the pain and hardship of war. The survivors should be honored and listened to with great intent, not because they deserve it, although most do, but because without the knowledge from someone that was actually there, humanity, on down to the individual, is even more bound to repeat the same mistakes of generations and societies before. This knowledge lies within every warrior, even if they don't realize it. Not tapping into that source is a mistake that today's societies miss the mark on. Society instead should look more towards those men and women of action and protection as at least one source for the answers to a more peaceful and understanding future.